DPIIT now, Startups Central, the first and only daily show in India dedicated to startups and entrepreneurship. I'm Ruchi Bhatia. We've got a power pack show lined up for you. So let's get started. The Commerce and Industry Ministry has proposed a host of measures such as tax incentives to promote budding entrepreneurs as a part of the Startup India Vision of 2024. The DPIIT has proposed setting up 50,000 new startups in the country by 2024 and creating about 20 lakh direct and indirect employment opportunities. The body has also suggested setting up 500 new incubators and accelerators by 2024. Let me take it across to my colleague Rahul Dayama, who's joining in with more details. Rahul, you've been covering startups for a very long time now. Help us understand how game-changing will be these ideas that DPIIT is talking about as a part of their 2024 idea and vision for startups?
Ruchi, you're right, on the face of it, even on the document, these are far-reaching, steps that will, and it sort of addresses all the concerns that entrepreneurs have with Startup India 1.0, if I may call it, if this is really 2.0 of Startup India. So, remember there was a fund of funds, 10,000 crores, of which less than 2,000 crores was really dispersed to startups. This document talks about how we will deploy the entire corpus now. So, a lot of teething challenges that entrepreneurs still say are on the ground. While a lot has improved, there's a lot more that has to be done. Talking about job creation and new startups is one thing, but what can you really do to ensure that the current breed of startups can grow and thrive? So, 1,000 crore of seed funding, you're right when you spoke about the regulatory sandbox and a single window clearance for loans for startups that's sort of applicable in banks, but they probably want to streamline it. So yes, on the face of it, the impact will be massive on startups if all of this gets through. But remember, all of this is a proposal now and would be given to the new government once it is formed, and the new government would really have to clear this proposal. So all of this on paper for now really look great, but the implementation will be closely watched.
Absolutely. On paper, all of this looks very great. Implementation is going to be key. But at a time like this, when all parties in their manifestos are really talking about startups and how they want to promote startups, make it easier for them for doing business, what are going to be the challenges when it comes to implementations? How implementable really is it going to be?
That's right. Ruchi, in terms of implementation, if they can get all of this working, because remember on the ground, even while Startup India, it's been close to 4 years, there is significant red tapeism, so to say, at government departments, ministries. We saw BJP announce that they look at ranking ministries and departments on how they work with startups. So there are concerns on the ground. Startups and entrepreneurs have been talking to say it's not always about the funding, but also the business of the government to not be in the business of startups. So where do they really draw a line? So, regulatory sandbox is a great idea. Tax incentives, they want a lot more clarity, really, because a lot of this, while is already in place, there's very little clarity for startups to really make the most of what really can come out of. So reiterating the fact that, this is implementable if there is the will, so to say, across ministries and departments. Because remember, the angel tax issue also took so long to really solve because there was multiple departments, finance ministry, CBDT, all of them really involved. So, it really comes down to the fact that how much of it can really be pulled off across departments and ministries.
All right, Rahul, many thanks for getting in all those details. A Startup India Vision 2024 has been put out by DPIIT. They're, of course, talking about big things for pushing the entire startup ecosystem. All right, time to shift focus. Remember, today in Delhi there was a big event on India Internet Day, and that was organized by TIE. We did manage to speak to a lot of important people from the startup world. So let's get started and get you a conversation that we had with Deepinder Goyal of Zomato. He was, of course, talking about his India growth plans and what he's betting in terms of the international markets. Let's hear it.
The Indian restaurant industry size back then was really small. There were like 50,000 restaurants in the top 20 cities, right? And if you compare it to Tokyo, for example, Tokyo just alone has 250,000 restaurants, right? And the gross turnover or GMV or whatever you want to call this of Tokyo was 5 times the size of India as a market. Like one city, the whole country, and we say we have so many people, but the restaurant industry here was like that small. So, and we were profitable in India. We didn't know what else to do, right? So, and we thought that food is one space which should, like everybody eats food, probably the same way everywhere in the world. It should work. So we stepped out, we went to UAE. UAE, the product worked really well. We've actually only made profit from UAE ever since we stepped into UAE. So almost all our international markets, they are profitable. I have this thing which I tell people at Zomato, that you drive value from outside of India and you drive valuations from inside India. That's life.
Okay, that's pretty good. So you were profitable fairly early. So that sounded a bit odd, I think, for startups to get profitable early. So is that when you feel that, okay, not doing something quite right, or one has to do something beyond? Because at this point, you're back to you're burning more than you're earning, right? And you've said recently that you're kind of heading towards some convergence, maybe in a few years. So where are you there in terms of getting back to profitability?
We were profitable 15 months ago as well. And nowadays...
That is overall across all...
Across all countries, okay. Geographies. And nowadays our monthly burn is more than what we've spent in the first 7 years of Zomato put together. So yeah, it's fun times. Let's see where this goes.
Long ago, we'd had a discussion. You told me about the challenges of the restaurant industry itself, on which Zomato was sort of riding as a platform. And it's heavily regulated. There's a lot of restrictions on restaurants and residential areas. How do you see this comparing with global norms? You've already said that Tokyo. You've given me the example of Shanghai, which has again more restaurants than all Indian cities put together. Okay, so how does this compare? And are we kind of making a fair bit of progress on this, or is this a significant area which is, because one would expect that India should be such a large market that it would completely occupy you. But you said, the potential was probably far greater in those 23 other countries.
So a restaurant in India needs way more licenses than any other country that we're in, right?
How many licenses?
I think nowadays about 30-ish.
30 licenses for a restaurant?
Depends whether you have a bar, things go up and down. And by state also, they are, by the state, they are also different. So it's a very complicated process to open a restaurant. Sometimes, restaurants or actually bars, when they open, they have to stay open for a couple of months to really finally get a bar license. So if you have opened a bar for 2 months, you have all the OPEX, and you can't do anything about that, right? So, and you're just tinkering cost. So running a restaurant in India is way tougher than running a restaurant anywhere else in the world, right? So I think Australia has just one license. You get one and you're up and running the next day. So that's actually, that makes everything very, very hard. The other thing which constrains the growth of the restaurant industry in India is the very high commercial real estate prices, right? So the prices, the rentals are so high, and then it translates to pricing being so high. So if you go dine out in any, say Delhi, your bill is almost going to be equal to if you go dine out in New York, right? So $100, like $5,000, like is normal if 2-3 people go out for dinner here, right? $100 is what it'll cost in New York as well. Right? So, and our income is not at par with people in the US, for example. So I think those are the two things which really constrain the growth of the restaurant industry in India. We have been trying to push to let restaurants open in residential real estate as well, but I think that's going to be a long drawn battle.
So that's still a no, that's still not
That's still
allowed.
a no. The dark kitchens are sort of solving it because you don't know where they are, so it doesn't matter whether they're residential or commercial. But outside of that, yeah, that's a problem which needs to be solved.
So all the home kitchens which are app aggregated, so they're not strictly legal.
I don't know.
Okay. You acquired, but keeping aside those.
So Feet on Street is not like so when you come back to the restaurant search and discovery platform, like Feet on Street was not that big a deal. Like we didn't need too many people. Like Delhi had about 4 people. They used to collect menus from all restaurants in the city. They start from one corner of the city. They just like comb the city, and in 3 months they're back at the start. Like so, every 3 months we are refreshing the content. It doesn't take too many people. So Feet on Street was never like a big cost to manage or a big op to manage. And that's the one thing we used to do well. Right? And you could find rich, up-to-date information on Zomato with scanned menus, with pictures, everything. And no other platform could compete with us because, I mean, we come from India and we are willing to do the hard work.
All right, that was, of course, Dipinder Goyal of Zomato. Time to get you another interaction, and this time this is Paytm's Vijay Shekhar Sharma. In fact, he believes that India can create and sustain 100 unicorns, also reaffirming his commitment to ramp up investment in Paytm Mall. Herein.
I started my company way back in 2001. I think those days even angel investments used to be very tough to get. Then we talked about Series A, Series B, then 100 million check. Now India can get billion check, and at the same point in time there are companies who are acquiring companies. So I think it's a significant circle. Now whatever is left is a little more that can continuously remain to be done. I would say most of it is here and now for the 100 of unicorns to happen.
So most of it is here, and we at TT now broke a story about SoftBank eyeing a stake in Reliance Jio. So how do you think this will impact the overall investment and the ecosystem?
I don't even know about it, so I have no comment to make except that India is the destination to invest.
Sir, while Paytm is making multiple bets, data from RBI shows that Paytm bank market share has dipped marginally with incumbents growing. So what's your comment on that?
Mathematics says that we grew 128% year on year. If a bank account is linked on Paytm and somebody is using UPI, that needs to be accounted in our side. So we are 128% year-on-year growth and actually higher market share.
Sir, RBI has also proposed a regulatory sandbox. Some players are calling it too restrictive, that policies are too restrictive. What's your take on RBI policies?
I haven't seen it yet, and I can only say this, a sandbox approach is always good because it allows people to try out new things. So if regulator is proposing sandbox, it is a forward statement.
Speaking of Paytm Mall, do you think the data shows that Paytm Mall, the interest in Paytm Mall is dwindling? Do you think it's the need of the hour is to bring back the cashbacks because people are losing interest because of reduced cashbacks?
No, I think the data is based on some courier companies' data, which we have discarded because we are an O2O model. O2O model is when customer is getting shipments from the shop that does not go through the standard courier. We are year on year up, and we are far more profitable. So I think it's a wrong data point that has been pointed towards.
What are the big investments you are looking at to remain the leader that you are?
I think we talked about it last time that payment is our moat, and we will continue to invest in more payments and consumer and merchant expansion. So that remains.
So, and I can't just help but ask you about the political environment in our country. We just have elections round the corner. So, what role do you think new government should be playing in, supporting the startups, the incumbent, the budding and entrepreneurs? So, what policy changes should new government bring in?
I think most of the policy change should be that there should not be much policy change, because a lot of investments and a lot of companies and plans are based on certain environment. So a lot of shake-up on policy and regulation always makes people uncomforted. So more or less things that are done to enhance the ecosystem's opportunity are welcome, and things that are restrictive, sometimes they come in the way, should not be done. So I would say that environment is pretty helpful already.
All right, current policy environment is helpful and we should stick to it. That's a word coming in by Paytm's Vijay Shekhar Sharma. Time to get you another big voice, and this is Google's Vice President Rajan Anandan, who's also talking about how India could be looking at 100 unicorns by 2025. He was also talking about the current startup ecosystem and the government policy for startups in the times to come. Here.
Years ago, India had only 2 unicorns, right? Last year, we had 8 new unicorns. And at the end of last year, we had about 17 unicorns in India. And just in the first 4 months of 2019, we have 3 new unicorns, right? Delivery, Big Basket, and Dream11 have become unicorns. So today, here we are. We have 20 unicorns. 5 years ago, we had, basically 2 unicorns. And I think we're today at a clip of 8 to 10 new unicorns a year, right? So if you look at where we are at 20. To get to 100, we need 80 more unicorns. And at 10 new unicorns a year, we're looking at about 8 years. So I think this goal of 100 Indian unicorns by 2025 is a very real one. And I think it's one that at this point, sort of the train's left the station and it's speeding along, right? And I think there will be a number of ecosystem factors that have really made this happen.
Do you think our policy environment is conducive? And I can't help but ask these questions. We have elections round the corner. So do you think the government needs to take up more reforms to, encourage entrepreneurs, or do you think our environment is just fine?
No, I think this government has been extraordinarily focused on startups, right? Startup India was an initiative that was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister when he actually came into office. And if you look at what's happened over the last 4 years, right? There's been an enormous amount of activity to promote startups, right? Everything from the government's fund of funds, the 10,000 crores that was set up to promote local venture capital, to lots and lots of different programs that have been done. But more important than policy, I think, is what has happened in India's ecosystem, right? We have many more of our best talent wanting to build companies. We have a lot more capital than we used to have, right? Today, Vijay Shekhar Sharma from Paytm was our opening keynote speaker, right? He said the first $100 million round in India happened in 2010. 2014 is when our first $1 billion round happened into Flipkart, right? But today, if you look at companies, Indian companies are raising $1 billion, right? Multiple $1 billion rounds over the course of a year. So I think funding has gotten much, much better. And third and most important is our addressable markets have gotten much bigger, right? The Indian internet today is close to 500 million users, right? Indian e-commerce will get to $30-40 billion this year. And if you look at all of these 3 things put together, right? Talent, capital, and markets. I think all 3 have come together, and government policy is really an accelerator. And I think I'm always been very, very bullish about the potential that India has to create a startup ecosystem. So trains left the station, we're speeding along.
Of course, and coming to another important issue, which is of data. You have been a strong proponent of data since your Google days, and we also saw the discussion about how India has already missed the AI bus. So what role do you think data and internet will play out in the story in the next 2-3 years?
Yeah, so I think it's very important to keep in mind that Indian startups will apply AI to solve large problems for Indian citizens and let's call it the remaining 4 billion or 5 billion people around the world, right? And if you look at what companies like Sigtuple are doing, or very early stage companies like Nayan is trying to use computer vision to solve the traffic problem, right, at scale. I mean, these are extraordinarily unique companies that are going to leverage AI to solve big India problems, right? So one of the questions I asked one of the, Anand from Microsoft is, has India missed the AI bus? Actually, India has not missed the AI bus. India is going to apply AI to solve very big problems, right? If you think about TCS is a $100 billion tech company that is truly global. They didn't invent the operating system, they didn't invent software, they didn't invent hardware. They just put together existing technologies to solve business problems, and then through the course of that built this enormously valuable company. And the way I think about AI is very, very similar. Hundreds, if not thousands, and over time tens of thousands of Indian startups are going to leverage AI to solve India-specific problems. And already I would say there are probably 50 to 100 extremely interesting AI-based companies, but they're not trying to make computer vision better per se, right? They're taking computer vision, they're taking translate, they're taking voice, and they're applying it to problems. You look at a company like Unifor, right, which is the B2B company, that is going to be, a massive company out of India leveraging AI to solve voice-driven voice analytics. They're creating a market for voice analytics, right? Is there an AI company? Absolutely.
And so when we talk about startups, it's hard to miss the topic of angel investors. You yourself have been a very prolific angel investor. So what areas do you think hold the maximum potentials, and what areas personally excite you the most?
Yeah, look, I think in many ways, in India, there are opportunities everywhere, right? If you look at e-commerce, which is actually an industry which had consolidated down to two very large players, Flipkart and Amazon, we are now beginning to see the emergence of e-commerce 2.0.
All right, 100 unicorns is what Rajan Anandan is speaking about. Remember, Rajan Anandan's role as Google India head gets over by the end of this month, and thereafter he will be joining Sequoia Capital. All right, moving on, another big voice, Policy Bazaar and Paisa Bazaar has seen a growth of more than 80%. That's a word coming in from Alok Bansal of Policy Bazaar. He also talks about their digital market that has shown a great growth potential herein.
In terms of business growth, the core business continues to be very strong. So when I say core business, it means Policy Bazaar and it means Paisa Bazaar. So these two have grown at 80% plus over the last 5-7 years. So very, very happy with that. But more than just the growth, I think the bigger focus for us is something we call PB Advantage, where we want to start creating differentiation and add more value to the customer when he's going through the whole process of purchasing any of the products. So that's been good, and I think that will continue. We still have a very large digital market, and we are just starting on that journey, even though we have been around for 11 years. Apart from this, we have looked at a lot of new experiments. One is the pure tech company that we are trying to build for the same services that we have in-house. The second one is on the healthcare side, where we are doing something called DocPrime. We have also started a small experiment in Dubai, which seems to be scaling up, although small market. So very, very excited that there are a lot of future growth drivers that we can see.
And so how much is two-wheeler and four-wheeler insurance addressed on your platform? It must be a sizable chunk, I guess.
Not really. I think these are very commoditized product. So yes, in terms of volume, we do a lot more, but in terms of actual premium, these are not the very, very high premium drivers for me. The amazing part is the platform actually is used by more people for protection business, which means the term insurance, the health insurance, critical illness, personal accident, those sort of covers. And that's where the real need of insurance actually exists.
And so how is have you seen any change in consumer behavior regarding your platform?
I think consumers are becoming more comfortable buying online. And earlier it used to be more like they want to research and their conversion will not be as much. Today you are seeing more and more customers getting that trust that this is a platform where they can transact. Second, the whole adoption of technology in the whole process is also flowing down to the customer level. So when we launched something like video inspection on the break-in case for motor insurance a couple of years back, customers just took it up, and now 11 of the insurance companies also use it as their standard. So that's very encouraging.
So my last question to you, there has been a lot of debate recently around differential voting rights, where the owner gets to reserve some of the voting rights. So what's your personal take on that?
See, I think it's a very good move. It's a very good move, especially when you do multiple rounds of funding. Typically, founders get diluted to single digits. In that case, sometimes your vision can get compromised if the board doesn't totally agree with what you want to do. Although they put in money, so they should have some rights. So it's always a balance that you have to keep. But having a bit of control because you want to steer the company in a particular direction. So that's always good, although I don't know how it will play out. It just came out last month. The actual execution needs to be seen, whether it will actually be implemented and whether it will actually empower entrepreneurs or not.
All right, all the big voices of the startup world here only on Startup Central. With that, we're completely out of time on this edition. Many thanks for watching.